I went in the military mainly was I was going to get drafted if I didn't go in, so I wasn't planning on going in the Marine Corps, but that was the first door when I went down, and he says, "Big boy, I don't know whether you could make it in the Marine Corps, and that's a challenge." So I went to the Marine Corps, played football the first year. That's what I did, is play football, and that was great. And the only trouble was I was a PSC under one and wasn't making any money. So
So let's talk about how much. I know how much it was when I first went in. How much was it a month when you went in?
$98 a month. That wouldn't pay your bar tab on the first day in today's age. When I joined and went to boot camp, they knew that I'd played football in high school and had some college. I'd played some amateur football too. And I coached my brother's football team. CYO, it was a 56 team now. They called it the 100-pound league back when I coached. So I ended up, knew I was going to get drafted, ended up going in the Marine Corps. First year in the Marine Corps, I played football for the San Diego Marines. San Diego's a great place to live if you're not in service, or if you have some rank and has some money. Otherwise, you don't have enough to live in California. You don't make enough. Why I went in on November 28th. I was supposed to go in September, but my brother come home and said they needed a coach to coach the 56 team, and so I called a recruiter, and not realizing the day after Thanksgiving I'd be in boot camp over Christmas. Not fun place to be. And I was 285 pounds when I went in, and by the time I graduated, I was 205. What the? I was in a barber's chair when Kennedy got shot. I'll never forget that. I went in the 28th, and I think it was on the 22nd. I'm not real sure what the exact date was. But I knew where I was going, but it changed a whole lot of things back then. If you remember about traveling and things like that.
I don't remember. I wasn't born.
Well, used to be airports, you just walked in and didn't go through any security checks or anything. Well, after that, everything was really tight. I mean, really tight. It went just like 9/11, and that changed things pretty much for a long time, until 9/11, that the world wasn't what it used to be, or at least in the United States. It was something that you didn't expect to happen in the United States. I was going to school in North Carolina when the Cuban crisis started, and then all the planes moving to southern Florida, where I was in South Carolina, North Carolina, where I was going to school. And there were just waves of planes heading south, to southern Florida, to the air bases in Florida, where they were not that far from Cuba. So this, with Kennedy getting shot, and I was already due to go in September, but I pushed it to the day after Thanksgiving, not realizing I'd be in there over Christmas in boot camp, which isn't a fun place to be. And that's how it changed a whole lot of stuff. I know, talking to some of the veterans who were rotating back to the United States, said that they knew something happened, they didn't know what, but they started issuing weapons. So they were aboard a ship because, nobody knew what was going to happen and when Kennedy got shot, and if there was going to be any type of uprising or anything like that, and just like after 9/11, things just kind of shut down all over.
Yep.
And so it was, kind of symbolic that I went in, that at that particular time. So, Vietnam was not a popular war. You'd never see me wear any hats or anything about until Desert Storm. And I mean, because, we weren't kind of welcome when we got back home. We were on Hill 200, which was outside the Nang perimeter. And every afternoon we would be getting sniped at. A guy would pull off 3 or 4 shots from what they called a pagoda, which is the Buddhists had these things that set out where they prayed, I guess, I don't know, but it was called a pagoda, and it was darn near in the middle of a rice paddy. Every afternoon, sniper would pull off a few rounds. So they sent a sniper team out to our hill, and they laid on top of that bunker and waited until this guy pops his head up and fires. The sniper goes, they knew the yardage out to where the pagoda was. The sniper goes, rolls over on the top of the bunker, knows the exact yardage, 810 meters. Click, 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 click. Sets up, aims, said if he pops up again, I'll shoot him. He popped up again, he shot him right in the head. Top of the head, forehead, right between the eyes. From 810 meters. Now that's a shot. I didn't believe it. I said, can you keep them from dragging them off? Yeah, we'll keep them off there. So I took a 4-man team out to make sure. And it's exactly what this sniper did. Now, snipers were something else in Vietnam. I mean, they were a different breed.
You telling me 800 meters, that's about a half a mile.
Yep.
That's about a half a mile to shoot somebody in the head with that much precision.
The longest shot is 1.5 miles with a .50 caliber by a team in Afghanistan. Was a Canadian sniper team.
Yeah, I heard about this.
And it took it 3 shots, but from almost 1.5 miles, he was on a ridge line. He shoots 3 times, and the guy that he shot didn't, hear that. I mean, he's 1.5 miles away, but he sees 3 shots. You see him off the rocks of the bottom of his feet, and he just kind of looks over to see, because he didn't know what it was. And you hear him you hear his spotter go up 7, right 5. And the next one lands almost at his feet, and he goes up 4 and right 1, and took him out. And that was on TV. We're going up side of a hill, all right? And I got this guy named Ely. Now, let me explain Ely. Ely has a crooked head. Now, and the reason I say that is on an IG infection, we got our utilities on and we wore starch covers. And the starch cover was supposed to come down to 1 finger above your ears. Now, as we're going down there, this major stops in front of Ely. Number one, I give him my rifle because I could clean his rifle, give it to him, and before he was called to attention, it would be bad. I said, now, I know he's going to stop in front of you and grab your rifle. So remember my rifle number. Don't give him your rifle number if he takes, darned if he don't stop. And he goes, rifle number. He gives him his rifle number. Now I'm standing there with his rifle. Now it's clean because he cleaned it good. It's just, I don't know what he would do, but while we were standing for the inspection, he would, if he had it, he'd make it dirty. And I didn't give him that till right before they called us to attention, so I know he couldn't do nothing with my rifle. But I said, you have to remember that number. Well, he doesn't. He gives him and he goes, squad leader, what's your rifle number? He said, that's your rifle number, isn't it? Yes. And then we're moving up to the top of the hill and we're taking sniper fire and I get to the top of the hill and here's Ely halfway down the hill, bent over, and I think he's got shot. So I go flying down there, and he's tying his bootlace. And I go, what the hell? Well, I didn't want to trip over my boot. I said, they're shooting at us. I mean, you can't make up a story like that.
Couple bullets short of a magazine.
A little bit more than a couple.
Alfonso was carried an M60 machine gun. All right, he's got 3 or 4 ammo humpers, and he's put in for a Navy Cross, which he eventually got. But when he did it, he got mad because they shot up his, they wounded his 2 ammo humpers, so he's going to have to hump most of the ammo. So he just stands up with this gun and starts firing. And he killed about 15, 18 people just standing there. On an M60, you can change the barrel because the barrel will get hot if you fired like he did. So without a glove, he takes the barrel off and puts another barrel in. That barrel is white hot, burn his hand. So he is a hero. There's no doubt him being a hero. But he took off from his duty station and went to the village because he had done it before and they knew that I had befriended him and he's going to get this Navy Cross and the general's coming to give it to him in front of on our hill. So they tell me to go find him. So I go down and I talk to the village chief and he said, yeah, I know where he is. So he said, tell him Corporal McCoy needs to talk to him. So he comes up and he says, you got to get back to the hill. He said, they're going to give you a Navy Cross. Yeah. And he says, and you got to be here because they can't very well. He was absent without leave in which is a court-martial offense. And so I go find him and he comes back and nobody kind of wanted him in their squad. I wanted him in my squad because of 2 things. He would never fall asleep on you. He could sit there with his legs crossed in a sitting position on top of and not move a muscle, but he had never fallen asleep on you. And if he said that was an animal out there moving around, it was an animal. If he said it was human, it was a human. Now, when I asked him, I said, I used him as tail end Charlie on my when I went on a night patrol, and the one time I get word that he dropped off the back of the patrol. And I said, well, when he comes back, I says, tell him to come up. So he comes up to me and he goes, I said, what's up? And he says, somebody's following us. And I said, okay, who is it? He said, it's another damn Marine squad that probably's got lost and that doesn't know where they're at. And I said, how do you know that? He said, because they're making too damn much noise. I mean, that was funny story. And then good old Pilar, we was sitting in a hole on Christmas. They made us get in our holes, and that's during the monsoon. And our fighting holes, we couldn't be in the bunker. And it filled up with water. I mean, it just poured. And I said, I can't tell you, but I ain't getting down in the hole of water with water in it. I said, I'm staying out here. If they shoot at me, they shoot at me, but I ain't getting my feet wet again. So I said, I'll be back. I said, I'm going to the bunker, and I had stashed some beer in my bunker, and I said, I'm going, and he says, and he didn't drink. He had never drank before in his life. He says, Colt McCoy, you got any more of that down there? And I says, yeah. He says, I think I'll drink a beer. I said, I didn't think you drank, or I would. He said, okay. So I go back down and get him one. He said, well, that doesn't taste too bad. I mean, you talk about funny things that happen like that.
It's not funny now, he's an alcoholic. But, no, it's
I was there a little over about 16 months. 13 months was supposed to, and I was supposed to rotate, and I probably got home before the guys that went back on the ship because I flew home. And I mean, which made, I had to take some guys, replacements that come, and we had moved up towards the DMZ to Dung Hall Air Base because they were getting ready to on an operation, and I was due to rotate, and so I was pulled back and said, you know, you need to take these guys up there, and I got stuck up there overnight because they started sniping at the planes, and so I couldn't get out and go back when I was supposed to. But I beat the guys home, that I think mainly because I flew home, and that's 30 days by ship. I hated ship. I was on the ship going over. That was the worst. Now, I made a few landings. I mean, when I've been, but we weren't aboard ship that long. I mean, but being on a ship for 30-some days ain't no fun at all. And guys getting sick. I mean, we went through a storm, and I didn't get sick. So, but I would stand guard duty on the old L1 level because I wasn't going to get sick, and I wanted to be down in the, we were 7 high bunkers on a canvas bed to come out of the wall. The time we left our lines, we didn't get hit like some of the other guys that come over after us. We were, at least I was, and I'd been to all these schools, guerrilla warfare school, demolition school. I knew I love C4 because I always had some. When I could get C4, you could boil water in a heartbeat by lighting it because it burned. I just didn't want to get your canteen cup too close to it or it'd burn a hole in the bottom of it. Well, I always had a block of C4 with me because you never know what you're going to run into. Now, I wouldn't carry blasting caps with it, but
Yeah.
a grenade would set it off. So if you got into where you really wanted to blow something up, I had enough to blow something up. I mean, my cartridge belt was probably weighed 80, 90 pounds because I carried double magazine M14 magazine pouch on either side because no matter how much weight I lost, I still have big hips. So I had four double magazines on this side with 15 rounds, four double magazines on this side with 15 rounds, four canteens of water. I wasn't going to run out of water. Water was a necessity over there, and you didn't want to drink the water out of their wells. All their wells were contaminated. The only place that we'd get water was out of streams when we get in the high ground, and if they ran over a waterfall, you could fill your canteens in it because the waterfall would, purify the water. Now, the time that I took canteens to fill water at a waterfall, I noticed a piece of bamboo. Now that bamboo over there was that big around. That big around, and you splice it down, and you would make you could run water on it. And I'm looking at I'm filling canteens up, and I'm looking at the waterfall. And I'm seeing this piece of bamboo come off of it, and they would be about 15 feet long. And I'm going, so I send two guys back and get the captain and have him come up. And he said, "What's so damn important?" I said, "Look at the waterfall. What do you see?" And I said, "I see a waterfall." And I see, I see a piece of bamboo coming off of it. And I said, "Yeah," but I said, look where it's at. Somebody's got running water. So he goes, "You guys stay here, don't move." He said, "I'll go get the rest of the company." So we got on line and swept down a hill. And as we come down the hill, we hear this screeching sound. The screeching sound was a warning, and there were 13 hooches that were built up on stilts. They called them hooches. They were all up on stilts to where they were up above ground, so during the monsoon they couldn't get wet. And we knew they bugged out because there was still tea that was hot. They were really into tea and some food, rice that had been cooking. They just left very quickly. 13 of the hooches, and so they were going to blow them all up. The engineers found a bunker in one of the hills, below one of the hooches, and they were going to blow them up. And as I was climbing up the bamboo ladder, because I went down in the bottom of the bunker with them because they weren't real sure what they were going to find down there, so they let me go first. And
you were target practice.
My foot slipped and kicked the back of the ladder, and there was a false wall. Now, so they went and pulled all the charges out. We opened it up. We found a radio, an old World War II hand-powered radio. We found some money, Vietnamese peas is what they called it. 200 P was $10 or $20. So and there was 5 or 6 ammo boxes full of money. and it was real. We thought it might have been counterfeit. Well, it wasn't. And the engineers just kind of looked at me, and he says, "They give me one of them here. Keep your mouth shut. We're going to turn almost all of it in." Now that's the true story. That nobody, it isn't.
I think the statute of limitations
Station has run out. Yes, but I mean, they said keep your mouth. Well, because they were all going to keep it, and then they saw me and they said you can't say nothing about this. Snakes were terrible. I mean, terrible. And I don't, all these guys want to play with the snakes. I don't play with snakes. I don't want nothing to do with snakes. I've ate snake. It's not, it's better than lizard, but to get even, and it happened to be a person of color I had in my squad, and he would always sea ration boxes. The best sea ration was the B1 unit because it had fruit cans of like peaches, pears, fruit cocktail, and it had a lot of juice in it. And when I'd pass out sea rations, he would always grab the B1 units, and I tried to give everybody a chance to get a good unit. So I was going to cure him of that, of grabbing before I could get it out of the box. I come down with a box that had B1 units, B2 units, and B3 units. So I get the bright idea of getting this old grass snake, smashing him up, putting him in the box, and because I know this guy is more afraid of snakes than I am. And he goes down to the grabs, and I told everybody, there's only going to be one, don't you grab it. Let him grab it. So I let him grab it. And he goes down the side of the hill and sits where he always sit by himself because he didn't want to know. Everybody let him know. And he opens that up and lets out a scream and takes off running. And I said, I cured him of grabbing. We were at war with them because of we were requested by the Army of South Vietnam. They made us take our flag down because we weren't there I got a picture in there of showing the flag flying off there, and damn come down and made us, general said, no, you can't have that there. We're not here to, call this an American, but
it was basically American war.
Yes. That was, I didn't like that at all. Oh, this was a lieutenant commander in the Navy. He was NCS, which now they call it NCIS, but he was NCS Naval Intelligence Service, and we were guarding nuclear weapons on Alameda Naval Air Station. And we had a cage where 12 guys or 24 guys came to work every morning, and you had badges, and you buzzed them in a cage that was supposed to be 10 guys only. But there was 24 of them, so we were put 12 guys, so 4 guys didn't have to stand. San Francisco, Alameda Naval Air Station's on San Francisco Bay, and the wind can blow and everything, and the guys had to go in what they called a UAW shop, underwater atomic warfare, and they stored nuclear weapons down in caverns underneath San Francisco Bay. Alameda is just across the bay from San Francisco. So he comes out there and he's got a bogus pass. And the way we put him in, we put 10 guys in, supposedly just 10 guys in the cage, and then they give me a badge because I was low man on totem pole. I'm the walking sentry. I go to the guard's tower and he's got a corresponding badge in there that he has to clip on when he comes in. I give it to him, and then I unlock the gate and go buzz the gate so it opens, and they come in. Well, instead of making 4 guys stand out there, we put 12 and 12, which wasn't our orders to do. We would put 12 guys in the cage, and this staff car pulls up, and this lieutenant commander gets out, and he's got a bogus visitor's pass. And all these badges had your face on them and a corresponding badge with a design on it that we had to put under a infrared scope to make sure that it was a real badge. That's how tight the security was where nuclear weapons were involved. So he comes up, and I told him, I said, I don't have any notice that you're going to be here. He said, so, you don't get in the cage. Well, he gets in the cage. Well, right away, that means I draw lock and load. 30 caliber comes out of the tower, and this major showing me his credentials, and I said, I don't care about your credentials. You step out of that side of that cage, you're going to get shot. And the funny part about it was, we had a colonel, as a full bird colonel, was command my CO. He has to come out and sign because of this violation, and he ain't happy because the admiral of the base commander called, said, I got an idiot out there. You're going to have to go out, and I want you tell him he comes to me because the admiral hadn't had his coffee yet, and our CO hadn't had his breakfast yet, and they were both really ticked. And I'd never seen a guy get chewed out like he got chewed out. He said, I'm almost going to let that man shoot you because he would have shot you.
Is it worse than Sergeant Carter?
Yeah. That was an idiot. I mean, they come and get the guys that had clearances, and we're attached to Secret Service to walk around his plane, to have the outer perimeter of his plane. Now you got to understand, this is back in 1964. And that's not too long after Kennedy got shot, so there's very security mind, and nobody is allowed on there. And the Secret Service guy comes up to us and says, we got you here because you're under my command. When we leave these 3 planes, nobody's allowed on them planes unless I clear them. And he says, you shoot them. He said, you don't shoot to stop them, you shoot to kill them. Nobody gets near any 3 of these planes. Now, I will tell you that with the 2 Marines, my daughter is Command Master Chief in the Navy now. All right? And when she shipped over, she was stationed at the National Defense Center because she was a crypto operator. And she told me, Dad, these 2 Marines that show up every morning that was in their, they call it intelligent row, and they have Army, Air Force barracks, and then the Marine Corps Navy barracks, and then the Coast Guard barracks. They're all in a row. And they have these 2 Marines that stay here that dress up in suits and leave. A limousine comes and picks them up. She said, but they're really, they carry an ankle gun, they carry a pistol in the small of their back, and they carry an Uzi inside their coat jacket. And so they got to be bodyguards for somebody, and I mean somebody that don't. And so she tells me about him, said they're going to come to my shipping over party. And I'm going, okay. So they come back and she says they're coming, and it says they'll come. So she told them that I was in the Marine Corps, a Vietnam vet and everything. So they come in the door, and the first thing they do is they eyeball all the exits, and they come over or introduce. I said, I know who you are, because they were in their suits, and I said, I know who you are. She described you pretty well. She said, but how do you know we were them? I said, only a Marine that had been a bodyguard would come in, look at all the exits to see where they were, and eyeball everybody in the room. And I mean, they did exactly what they were trained to do, but it was kind of funny because I just knew who they were. When I was stationed in Quantico, the Presidential Marine One helicopters, there's 3 of them. They come out of Quantico, has a small airport there. They come out of there, and when the president comes up in Marine One, they fly in a crossing pattern because there's 3 of them, and they don't want them to know which helicopter he's in. And then I thought, I know they have Marine Guards on aboard with him and Secret Service, but I said surely they have other security. Yeah, there's 2 Sea Knights that carry 12 Marines on each of them, full battle dress, full weaponry, that travel with them. Which I thought was kind of funny, because I thought, there got to be more than just the guys aboard those 3 helicopters. That isn't that much. Well, these guys are highly trained, and they got one thing: protect the president. That's all, And when you're assigned a duty like that, it's you don't ask questions. Michael W. McCoy, Michael Walter McCoy, Sergeant. I got out of Sergeant, E5 Sergeant. 206-9727.
You joined November 28, 1963. When was your last day?
November 8, 1967.
1967.
I was transferred across the United States from Camp Pendleton with just 90 days to do after I got married to play football, which I didn't. I wanted to get out. Well, how do you know that you did this or did that? Show them that. That is something that, like I said, the Army guy that goes in greens, Cy Greens, he's the one that laminated them. From overseas that were crazy stuff. I mean, guys that just Elick with his crooked head, and I put that on. I mean, that major just wasn't going to believe me, and I put it on his head, and like I said, 2 fingers across. If I put that on there with 2 fingers,